What's up, everybody? Welcome back, Corey Hughes Bloody History. So, today, I wanted to start on something a little different. Actually, very different from what we've been doing. And don't worry, everything that we've ever covered, we've done over 100 episodes, 103 episodes in the past 10 months. So, all that stuff is to be continued, right? There's not a single series that we've covered thus far that is complete. They're all going to be continued, right? So we haven't really focused at all on a lot of things. We haven't spent too much time on the book depository. We spent some with the Roy Truly stuff, but we have a whole lot more to get to. What else? We haven't gotten to the Paynes, which to me, they're just his handlers, period. They were their babies. They were babysitters for him, right? Or for at least for the wife. At least for the wife. So, another person we haven't got to is George de Mohrenschildt. Or as he was born, George von Mohrenschildt. But George de Mohrenschildt was an ex-Nazi spy turned CIA spy. It seems as though George de Mohrenschildt constantly visited countries that were then overthrown by the fucking U.S. So he has definitely something to do with the corporate connections to oil in countries that we went and overthrew, from what I've gathered over the years. And I haven't really spent a lot of time on him. I read a couple hundred pages of his 5,000-page FBI file, but I can't seem to find that specific file again. There's a lengthy George de Mohrenschildt file. It's mostly like black paper with white text. It's really weird looking. But today we're going to cover we're going to go over some official story stuff, right? We're going to cover the Warren Commission's report on George de Mohrenschildt. And so it's going to be pretty straightforward. Pretty much basics on his life, stuff like that is what we'll get to today. I want to get this out there and done because eventually we'll go deeper into his more extensive FBI file and show his connections to like Hosty, the FBI agent who was Oswald's, contact in Dallas. We'll see that George de Mohrenschildt and Hosty had a relationship going back to I think it was 1956, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot of weird stuff you'll see. A lot of familiar names will pop up in the background of George de Mohrenschildt. But let's get started. Forward. The Warren Commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, that he was not tied to any intelligence agency, and that none of his associates were tied to the assassination. Nevertheless, speculation continued to center about one of Oswald's associations, George de Mohrenschildt, and de Mohrenschildt's background. The Warren Commission concluded about de Mohrenschildt. The Commission's investigation has developed no signs of subversive or disloyal conduct on the part of either the de Mohrenschildts. Neither the FBI, CIA, nor any other witness contacted by the Commission has provided any information linking the de Mohrenschildts to subversive or extremist organizations, nor has there been any evidence linking them in any way with the assassination of President Kennedy. Despite this disclaimer of any subversive or disloyal activity on the part of de Mohrenschildt by the Warren Commission, de Mohrenschildt was rumored to have had ties with the intelligence community of several countries. Indeed, de Mohrenschildt himself admitted some involvement with French intelligence, but his actual role with them was never fully disclosed, and he emphatically denied any other intelligence associations. He explained his travels to Haiti with the cooperation of the Haitian government as innocuous business deals with no political overtones. Speculation also continued about Oswald's relationship to de Mohrenschildt because of the contrast between the backgrounds of the two men. De Mohrenschildt was described as sophisticated, well-educated, moving easily in the social and professional circles of oil men and the so-called White Russian community, many of whom were avowed right-wingers. Oswald's lowly background did not include much education or influence, and he was in fact shunned by the same Dallas Russian community that embraced de Mohrenschildt. The committee undertook to probe more into the background and associations of de Mohrenschildt to determine if more light could be shed to either explain the relationship between Oswald and de Mohrenschildt or to determine if any new information contradicts that which was available to the Warren Commission. This probe seemed justified in view of the controversy that continues to surround the relationship and the additional speculation that was caused by the apparent suicide of de Mohrenschildt in 1977, on the day he was contacted by both an investigator from the committee and a writer about Oswald. Part 1. De Mohrenschildt's background. De Mohrenschildt testified extensively before the Warren Commission about his childhood in Russia and Poland and his family. He was born on April 17, 1911, in Mozyr in Tsarist Russia. His father, Sergius Alexander von Mohrenschildt, was a marshal of nobility in Minsk province, and he served as director of the Nobel interests in Russia. His mother, Alexandra Zopalski, was of Russian, Polish, and Hungarian descent. De Mohrenschildt's family had long had ties to the United States. A descendant of the de Mohrenschildt family, Baron Heilenfeld, who was a Baltic Swede, fought in the American Army of Independence, according to de Mohrenschildt. An uncle, Ferdinand de Mohrenschildt, was first secretary of the last Russian embassy in Washington under the Tsarist government. De Mohrenschildt's brother, Dmitri von Mohrenschildt, emigrated to the United States and became a professor at Dartmouth University. Dmitri, it is de Mohrenschildt. He changed his name also, I believe. The name itself changed from von Mohrenschildt to von Mohrenschildt to de Mohrenschildt. So Dmitri himself, he was one of the founders of Radio Free Europe, which we all know is a CIA operation. De Mohrenschildt's father was jailed by the communist regime in 1920 for criticizing the communist government. Friends of the government intervened to secure his release. He was jailed again in 1921 and banished to Siberia for life. De Mohrenschildt explained that sentence was imposed when his father maintained that the kind of government he favored for the Russian people was a constitutional monarchy. Sergius von Mohrenschildt escaped with his family to Poland. De Mohrenschildt's mother died soon after from typhoid fever, which she had contracted during the escape. While living in Poland, the elder de Mohrenschildt successfully fought to regain an estate he had held in Russia near the Polish border. It was money from that estate that George de Mohrenschildt brought to the United States in 1938 when he started his first business interest. The size of the estate at that time was estimated at approximately $10,000. De Mohrenschildt testified that his brother Dmitri remained a ferocious anti-communist. He served in the Tsarist Russian Imperial Navy. After the Russian Revolution, Dmitri von Mohrenschildt joined anti-communist groups and was jailed by the communists and sentenced to death. He was released from jail in a prisoner exchange with the help of a Polish Catholic bishop. Dmitri von Mohrenschildt emigrated to the United States in August of 1920. 2. Allegations of de Mohrenschildt Nazi activity. On October 8, 1942, the U.S. Department of State placed a refusal or lookout in de Mohrenschildt's passport file. The committee was informed by the State Department that the effect of such a lookout would be that when the person applied for any type of passport action, the file would be reviewed to determine if the person posed a security threat or had made false statements upon entering the United States. The reason given for the lookout in de Mohrenschildt's file was alleged to be Nazi agent. Refer any application to fraud section. The file was cross-referenced to the file of Lilia P. Larin, Larin. De Mohrenschildt entered the United States in 1938. According to his Warren Commission testimony in 1942, de Mohrenschildt met and fell in love with Lilia Larin, a Mexican citizen, and they traveled to Mexico together. They stopped at a beach in Corpus Christi, Texas, en route to Mexico, and were then confronted by American government agents whom de Mohrenschildt thought might have been FBI agents. The agents accused de Mohrenschildt of being a German Nazi spy. Their car was searched, but they were then allowed to continue on their way into Mexico. After de Mohrenschildt lived in Mexico for several months, the Mexican government informed him that he was persona non grata in Mexico and ordered him to leave the country. De Mohrenschildt speculated that the expulsion was prompted by General Maxino Camacho of the Mexican Army, who was jealous of de Mohrenschildt's relationship with Lilia Larin. De Mohrenschildt's passport file also contained a document dated January 23, 1943, that referred to the censorship of mail of Lilia Larin. According to that document, a letter by Larin to the Mexican government was intercepted. In that letter, Larin was seeking to intercede on de Mohrenschildt's behalf in getting permission for him to enter Mexico. When de Mohrenschildt applied for a U.S. passport in January 1957, his application contained a penciled notation referring to the earlier lookout in his file. Nevertheless, the application was approved and de Mohrenschildt's passport was issued on January 23rd, 1957. A similar notation was made on de Mohrenschildt's application in March of 1960 when he applied for a passport renewal. The refusal was similarly disregarded at that time, and he continued to receive passport renewals. There was no further reference in de Mohrenschildt's State Department file about the original allegation or the determinations to later disregard the refusal. The Warren Commission also questioned de Mohrenschildt about the background of his cousin, Baron Maydell, Maydell, and the allegations that Maydell may have had connections with the Nazis. De Mohrenschildt described Maydell as a white Russian who opposed to communism and thought he could get the return of his Russian estate through intervention of the Germans. In de Mohrenschildt's opinion, it was Maydell's German sympathies that created controversy and speculation that he was a German spy. In 1941, de Mohrenschildt began work with Maydell's company, Film Facts, Inc. in New York. De Mohrenschildt said he saw the work as an opportunity to learn something about making documentary movies. With Maydell, he made a documentary about the resistance movement in Poland and solicited the sponsorship of the Polish consulate. De Mohrenschildt said the movie was also used to benefit Polish refugees. De Mohrenschildt's Central Intelligence Agency file contains a memo dated July 30th, 1942, that referred to some type of film enterprise. The memo was written by Ensign Horrigan and directed to Commander Vanderbilt of the Office of Strategic Services. In the memo, Horrigan states that de Mohrenschildt said he was representing an Irish film company that had taken pictures during the Spanish Civil War. Horrigan wrote de Mohrenschildt's uncle's apartment was raided and that many films of pro-Nazi nature were discovered which were intended to show the force and effectiveness of the German army. 3. Knowledge of Oswald's possession of the rifle. George de Mohrenschildt testified before the Warren Commission that one evening when he and his wife visited the Oswalds at their Neely Street address in Dallas, Marina Oswald exclaimed that Oswald had bought a gun and showed the gun to Jean de Mohrenschildt. De Mohrenschildt testified that this took place around Easter in the spring of 1963 and that the occasion of the visit was to take an Easter present or toy to the Oswald's daughter. In his testimony, de Mohrenschildt related that during that visit, he and Oswald stood talking in the front room. Marina Oswald opened a closet door to show the gun to Jean, and Jean in turn called out to George, who was in the next room, that Lee had a gun. De Mohrenschildt said he did not look at the gun, but that Marina said Oswald used it for target shooting and that he had a telescopic sight. De Mohrenschildt said that he then asked Oswald jokingly if Oswald had taken the shot at General Walker, which had occurred in Dallas on April 10th of 63. De Mohrenschildt said Oswald became tense and sort of shriveled and made some kind of face in answer to the question without specifically answering the question. Nevertheless, in an interview at the American Embassy in Haiti in December 1963, the State Department officials, the de Mohrenschildts claimed that the gun incident had occurred in the fall of 1962. Mrs. de Mohrenschildt stated that Marina Oswald had said, "Look how crazy he has bought a gun." Mrs. de Mohrenschildt said she thought Oswald had only recently purchased the gun that was about 4 feet long, and she did not know if it was a rifle or a shotgun. She said Marina Oswald told her there was something special about the gun, that it was either automatic or had a telescopic sight. In that interview, de Mohrenschildt claimed that the last time he and his wife saw the Oswalds was in January of 63, and that the de Mohrenschildts were too busy preparing for their upcoming trip to Haiti to see the Oswalds after that. De Mohrenschildt had contacted the American Embassy in Port-au-Prince, Haiti immediately after the assassination and said he had been acquainted with Lee Harvey Oswald, volunteering to be of assistance during the assassination investigation. On April 1st, 1977, the committee received from Jean de Mohrenschildt, the widow of George de Mohrenschildt, a photograph of Oswald standing in a yard holding a rifle in one hand and 2 newspapers in the other. A gun was strapped in a holster on his hip. This photograph, which was similar to the other photographs recovered in a search of Oswald's property on November 23, 1963, had never been seen by the Warren Commission or law enforcement officials. On the rear of the photograph was the notation "To my friend George" from Lee Oswald with the date 5/IV/63. That's weird. And another notation, "Copyright GODM," and an inscription in Russian reading, "Hunter of Fascists, ha ha ha." A handwriting panel engaged by the committee determined that the writing "To my friend George" and the Oswald signature were the writing of Lee Harvey Oswald. The panel was not able to conclude whether the other writing was written by Lee Harvey Oswald, Marina Oswald, or George de Mohrenschildt. It was Marina. On April 1st, 1977, the committee also received from Jean de Mohrenschildt a copy of the manuscript of the book, I Am a Patsy, I Am a Patsy, which George de Mohrenschildt was writing about his relationship with Lee Harvey Oswald at the time of de Mohrenschildt's suicide on March 29th, 1977. In that manuscript, de Mohrenschildt wrote that he and his wife had stumbled upon the gun photo in February 1967 in boxes of their belongings that they had placed in storage in early 1963 before their departure for Haiti in May 63. De Mohrenschildt speculated in the manuscript that Oswald had, in a sense, left them a gift from the grave, placing the photograph where it could later be discovered by de Mohrenschildt. He explained that the photo was among English practice records that he and his wife had loaned to Marina Oswald, and that somehow the Oswalds had managed to return those records, including the photograph, to the de Mohrenschildt's possessions. In the manuscript, de Mohrenschildt identified the handwritten date of the photograph, 5IV-63, April 5-63, and stated that at the time he and his wife were thousands of miles away in Haiti. That statement contradicts the statement that de Mohrenschildt gave to the Warren Commission and State Department officials about the dates of his travel to Haiti. The circumstances of the de Mohrenschildt's learning that Oswald owned a rifle, the de Mohrenschildt's comment to Oswald about the Walker shooting, and the circumstances of the discovery of the gun photograph in the de Mohrenschildt's possession may indicate knowledge of the de Mohrenschildt's had about the violent turn Oswald's political inclinations had taken that have not been fully explored. 4. Allegations of de Mohrenschildt's intelligence connections. During his Warren Commission testimony, de Mohrenschildt was asked by Counselor Jenner if he had ever been in any respect an agent. De Mohrenschildt responded that he never had. He testified that none of his foreign ventures had ever involved any political activity. Nevertheless, de Mohrenschildt explained that in 1941 he was involved with Pierre Fraiss, Fraiss, who was connected with French intelligence work in the United States. De Mohrenschildt said he went to work for the Schumacher Company in New York as a salesman when he first arrived in the United States in 1938. He identified Fraiss as the chief of export of the Shoemaker Company and one of his best friends. De Mohrenschildt said he knew Fraiss was connected with French intelligence and that he worked for Fraiss collecting facts on people involving pro-German activity. De Mohrenschildt said the work with Fraiss took him around the United States. It also involved contacting oil companies in the United States about selling oil to the French in competition against German oil supplies during the war. De Mohrenschildt was compensated for expenses incurred in the data collection for Fraiss, but was not paid a salary, according to his sworn testimony. In his Warren Commission testimony, de Mohrenschildt stated that he believed he had discussed Lee Harvey Oswald with J. Walton Moore, whom de Mohrenschildt described as, quote, a government man, either FBI or CIA. De Mohrenschildt said Moore had interviewed him when he returned from Yugoslavia and that he was known as head of the FBI in Dallas. De Mohrenschildt asserted that he and Moore and Fort Worth attorney Max Clark about Oswald to reassure himself that it was safe for the de Mohrenschildts to assist Oswald. According to his testimony, de Mohrenschildt was told by one of the persons he talked to about Oswald, although he said he could not remember who it was, that the guy seems to be okay. This admitted association with J. Walton Moore fed the rumors of some involvement by de Mohrenschildt in intelligence activities. In 1963, J. Walton Moore was employed by the Central Intelligence Agency in Dallas in the Domestic Contacts Division. According to Moore's CIA personnel file, he was assigned to the Domestic Contacts Division in 1948. Moore's duty in the Dallas office were contacting individuals in the area who had information on foreign topics. Remember, the CIA is not supposed to operate in America. But here you go, in the fucking Dallas CIA Domestic Contacts Division office. Like, fuck you guys. In an agency memorandum dated April 13, 1977, contained in George de Mohrenschildt's CIA file, Moore set forth facts to counter a claim which had been recently made by WFAA-TV in Dallas that Lee Harvey Oswald was employed by the CIA and that Moore knew Oswald. In that memo, Moore is quoted as saying that according to his records, the last time he talked to George de Mohrenschildt was in the fall of 1961. Moore said that he had no recollection of any conversation with de Mohrenschildt concerning Lee Harvey Oswald. The memo also noted that Moore recalled only 2 occasions when he met with de Mohrenschildt, first in the spring of 58 to discuss the mutual interest of the 2 couples had in mainland China, and then in the fall of 61 when the de Mohrenschildt showed films of their Latin American walking trip. Other documents in de Mohrenschildt's CIA file indicated more contact between Moore and the de Mohrenschildt than was stated in the 1977 memo by Moore. In a memorandum dated May 1st, 64, from Moore to the acting chief of the contacts division of the CIA, Moore stated that he had known George de Mohrenschildt and his wife since 1957, at which time Moore got biographical data on de Mohrenschildt after de Mohrenschildt's trip to Yugoslavia for the International Cooperation Administration. Okay, something called the International Cooperation Administration is fucking CIA, all right? Plain and simple. Normal motherfucking people don't get involved with shit like this. They don't. All these NGOs and anything that sounds like the International fucking Cooperation Administration is clearly intelligence. Moore said also in 1964 memo that he saw de Mohrenschildt several times in 1958 and 1959. De Mohrenschildt's CIA file contained several reports submitting by de Mohrenschildt to the CIA on topics concerning Yugoslavia. In an interview with the committee on March 14, 1978, Moore stated he did interview de Mohrenschildt in 1957 after the Yugoslavia trip. At that time, Moore also indicated that he had periodic contact with de Mohrenschildt for debriefing purposes over the years after that. A CIA agent is getting debriefed by de Mohrenschildt, but de Mohrenschildt is claiming not to have been CIA. Fuck you! Moore said that none of the contact or conversation with de Mohrenschildt was related to Oswald. Moore said that the allegations that de Mohrenschildt had asked Moore's permission to contact Oswald were false. See, spooks need to get their story straight. 5. De Mohrenschildt's activities in Haiti. According to State Department documents, George de Mohrenschildt and his wife were living in Haiti at the time of the assassination. They arrived in the country on June 2nd, 1963. De Mohrenschildt had earlier been in Haiti in March of 1963 and returned to Dallas a week later. He told State Department officials that he left Dallas April 9th, 1963, traveled to New York and Philadelphia, and then returned to Dallas for 2 days to make preparations for the final trip to Haiti. De Mohrenschildt testified before the Warren Commission that he first visited Haiti in 1956 when he was working for the Sinclair Oil Company. At that time, he did a geological prospect for oil drilling in the northern part of Haiti. The project was abandoned because of the expropriations of companies which were going on in the Caribbean area. When de Mohrenschildt returned to Haiti in 1961, after his South American walking trip, he continued working on plans for a possible geological project in Haiti. During 1962, de Mohrenschildt continued to negotiate and promote the business venture, and in that year he formed the Haitian Holding Company and listed as the principals of the company himself, B. Jundine Tardieu, a financier living in Haiti with real estate holdings, who served as an advisor to the Banque Commerciale de Haiti in Port-au-Prince, and Clamart Joseph Charles, president of the Banque Commerciale de Haiti. The objectives of the company, as outlined by de Mohrenschildt, were the development of industries and enterprises in Haiti, using Haitian and American capital and some economic assistance from governments of 2 countries. De Mohrenschildt testified that his work in the Haitian enterprise was to include conducting a geological survey of Haiti to plot out oil and geological resources on the island. He said that on March 13, 1963, he concluded a contract with the Haitian government which guaranteed that he would be paid $285,000 for the survey. $20,000 was paid in cash, and the remainder was to be paid out in a 10-year concession on a sisal plantation. He explained that Clamart Joseph Charles continued the administrative work on the sisal plantation, while de Mohrenschildt pursued his geological work. De Mohrenschildt identified before the Warren Commission newspaper articles about Charles, which he used in his promotional efforts to secure capital for the holding company. In one of the articles, Charles is identified as entering into a multi-million-dollar housing project with the financial assistance of large American banking interests. In another article, it was reported that Charles had been presented with the keys of the city of New York. De Mohrenschildt stated that to the Warren Commission, the undertaking in Haiti was a purely commercial and geological interest with no other purpose or intent. De Mohrenschildt explained that the office he used in Port-au-Prince was in fact the office of the Inter-American Geodetic Survey, but that the maps he developed were not to be used by any nation or group for any type of work other than his own geological interests. De Mohrenschildt testified to the Warren Commission that he left Dallas May 1963 and traveled to New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. before arriving in Haiti in June. He stated that in Washington, D.C., he was preparing for the eventuality of this project, checking with the People Bureau of Mines and so forth. He gave no further details and was not asked for by any of the Warren Commission about his activities in those cities or his contacts. In the CIA Office of Security memo dated December 30th, 1974, contained in De Mohrenschildt's file, the agency noted that the De Mohrenschildts left Dallas after April 19th, 1963 for a trip to New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., but they had not given any information in their testimony on, quote, whom they had contact with or what they were doing April 19th to late May 1963. The memo also noted that another individual had requested an expedite check on De Mohrenschildt for, quote, exact reasons unknown. It was stated further in the memo, quote, it is interesting that name deleted. Interest in De Mohrenschildt coincided with the earlier portion of this trip, and the info would suggest that possibly name deleted and De Mohrenschildt were possibly in the same environment in Washington, D.C. circa April 26, 1963. It was not brought out in his Warren Commission testimony, but De Mohrenschildt did meet in Washington, D.C. in the spring of 63 with the Department of Defense personnel and Clemard Joseph Charles, the Haitian banker, through whom De Mohrenschildt was negotiating his Haitian contracts. Let's pull all the info on Clemard Joseph Charles. George De Mohrenschildt's agency file contained a memorandum of a phone call on May 7, 1963 to Dorothy Matlack of the Office of the Army Chief of Staff for Intelligence about De Mohrenschildt and Charles. According to the memo, the purpose of the call was to arrange a meeting between Charles and an agency representative for noon of that day. Mrs. Matlack had apparently made hotel reservations for the De Mohrenschildts and Charles. In an interview with the committee on September 4th, 1978, Dorothy Matlack stated that she served as Assistant Director of the Office of Intelligence of the Army until her retirement in 1974. Her work included, quote, human resource collection of intelligence, and involved serving in a liaison capacity with the CIA. Interesting. So Dorothy Matlack, who's working for the Office of the Army Chief of Staff, right, for intelligence about De Mohrenschildt and Charles. Okay, so Dorothy Matlack's working for the Army Chief of Staff Intelligence Office, okay? But, you see, she's an infiltrator. She works for the CIA. Works for the CIA. And involved serving as a liaison capacity with the Central Intelligence. She's a spook. She's a spook. She's not just a liaison, ever. Mrs. Matlack said she was first informed about the visit of Clemard Joseph Charles to the United States in 1963 by Colonel Sam Cale, an Army intelligence officer who was working in Miami at that time. Cale suggested that Mrs. Matlack talked to Charles when he visited Washington, D.C. because of Charles' relationship to President Duvalier of Haiti and Haiti's strategic position relative to Castro's Cuba. During the committee interview, Mrs. Matlack said that she arranged a meeting for Charles in May of 63 in downtown Washington with Tony Tchaikowski, Czaikowski, of the CIA, whom she introduced as a professor from Georgetown University. She described Charles as frantic and frightened during the meeting. He urged Mrs. Matlack to get the U.S. Marines to invade Haiti and overthrow Duvalier. Mrs. Matlack said George and Jean De Mohrenschildt accompanied Charles to this meeting and that their presence was surprise to her. She did not know what role De Mohrenschildt was serving, but felt he dominated Charles in some way. Mrs. Matlack said that despite the explanation of Charles and De Mohrenschildt that they were in the jute business together, she did not believe that was the reason for their presence together at the meeting. Referring to the De Mohrenschildts, Mrs. Matlack said, "I knew the Texan wasn't there to sell hemp." Mrs. Matlack said she was so disturbed by Mohrenschildt at the meeting that she discussed it with the FBI liaison, Pat Putnam, Putnam. Mrs. Matlack said she never heard what action, if any, was taken by the FBI about Mohrenschildt. According to Matlack, Charles had no military information of value to offer. She did not recall Charles ever discussing the question of arms sales to Haiti. Because of the potential political information Charles could give about the current situation in Haiti, the CIA became the primary contact with Charles. Mrs. Matlack said that except for a few phone calls, after that meeting she never had any further contact with Charles. A Washington Post article by Norman Gale, dated September 29, 1964, reported that Haitian President Francois Duvalier had received 2 T-28 fighter planes from Dallas, Texas. The article stated the planes were flown to Haiti illegally. According to the article, Duvalier made down payment on the planes with a letter of credit for $210,000 drawn on the Bank Commercial of Port-au-Prince. The article identified Clamart Joseph Charles as president and principal stockholder of the bank and a close ally of Duvalier. The article stated that Charles visited the United States earlier in 1964 to buy boats and other weapons, and that he visited Dallas during that trip. The article reported that I. Irving Davidson, Washington lobbyist, visited Haiti in May of '63 with 2 Dallas arms suppliers. Let's pull everything on I. Irving Davidson. I. Irving Davidson was interviewed by the committee on November 2nd, 1978 in Washington, D.C. At that time, Davidson was asked about his business involvement with Haiti and the Haitian government and possible ties with George de Mohrenschildt. Davidson said he first became involved in business in Haiti in 1962 or 1963 through Sam Ferber, whom Davidson described as an import-export dealer from New York. Let's pull everything on Sam Ferber, please. Davidson said that he registered at that time with the State Department as a lobbyist on behalf of the Haitian government. His relationship with the Haitian government prospered to the extent that he became friends with the president of Haiti, Francois Duvalier, and remained in contact with him for several years. His business deals also involved working with the American Embassy in Port-au-Prince. Davidson said he was able to create warmer feeling about Haiti by the American government. Davidson denied that he had ever participated in any arms deals for the Haitian government. He said Duvalier never had the money to buy arms. Davidson said in the interview that he met Clamart Joseph Charles once when visiting Duvalier, but that he never met with him again nor transacted any business with Charles. He said he was unaware of newspaper accounts that he had arranged arms sales for Charles. Davidson said he was not acquainted with George de Mohrenschildt in Haiti. In fact, Davidson claims he was not aware of the de Mohrenschildt until 1978, when a newspaper article by Jeremiah O'Leary of the Washington Star suggested that Davidson had approached the FBI to find out what information the Bureau had on de Mohrenschildt in connection with the Kennedy assassination. The article mentioned an FBI memo about a meeting at the Bureau between Davidson and 2 FBI agents in October of 1967. According to the FBI memo, which is dated November 1st, 1967, and directed to Cartha DeLoach of the Bureau from T.E. Bishop and Special Agent Hobson, Adcock met with Davidson at FBI headquarters on October 31st, 1967. According to Bishop, Davidson telephoned the Bureau on October 28, 1967, and requested a meeting with Clyde Tolson. Davidson said he had been approached by Leonard Davidoff and Hugh MacDonald because they wanted Davidson to make inquiries about de Mohrenschildt's background. Davidoff and MacDonald were allegedly working to uncover evidence that the de Mohrenschildt was involved in the assassination and that former President Lyndon Johnson had prior knowledge of the conspiracy to assassinate President Kennedy. According to the memo, Davidson also said that MacDonald was engaged in some type of business arrangement with Howard Hughes' business empire in Las Vegas. Interesting. Bishop added in the memo that Davidson volunteered that after he made some inquiries about de Mohrenschildt for Davidoff and MacDonald, he would turn the information over to the Bureau. Despite Davidson's offer of assistance to the Bureau, Bishop characterized Davidson's interest in the de Mohrenschildt aspect of the case in this way. Quote, during yesterday's interview, Davidson, alleged his only concern was that of protecting President Johnson from being smeared. However, it is strongly believed that his real motive was that of seeking information on de Mohrenschildt and MacDonald. In support of this, it is noted that prior to coming to Bureau headquarters, he had already contacted Edward Cohen for background information on de Mohrenschildt and spent the previous weekend in Dallas, Texas, allegedly for the purpose of attending a football game. However, Dallas is also the residence of de Mohrenschildt. In the memo, Bishop identified Edward Cohen as having previously been the subject of an FBI investigation. Bishop noted that Cohen had also conducted an investigation into Lyndon Johnson's alleged association with Overseas National Airways. During the interview with the committee, Davidson stated that he never met with Bishop and Adcock, as stated in the memo. Davidson said David All Van McDonald did contact him about the possibility of Mohrenschildt being involved in the Kennedy assassination, and he did then relate the substance of that meeting to the Bureau. Nevertheless, he said the memorandum takes the import of the meeting at the Bureau out of context and suggests as interest in the Mohrenschildt when he, in fact, had none. A CIA Office of Security memorandum dated January 7, 1964 reported that a confidential informant advised that the president of Haiti sent a confidential message to Davidson during last week of December 1963. The contents of the message were not known. The U.S. State Department further documented some involvement by Charles in the sale of American military planes. In an airgram dated May 2, 1967, from the Department of State to the American Embassy in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, it was reported that Edward Browder, Browder, had leased a plane for 1 year starting November 24, 1964, in the name of a phony company, and had flown the plane to Port-au-Prince and left it there. The airgram reported also that Browder later cashed a check for $24,000 signed by Clemard Joseph Charles. Another airgram from the State Department to the embassy dated May 25, 1967 verified that the check to Browder was drawn from the personal account of Clemard Joseph Charles at manufacturer's Hanover Trust Bank. Edward Browder was interviewed by the committee on January 12, 1978 at the federal penitentiary at McNeil Island, Washington, where he was serving a 25-year sentence for securities violations. During the interview, Browder discussed a series of gun running and smuggling operations he was involved in during the 1960s that were intended to result in the eventual overthrow or assassination of Fidel Castro. Browder stated that his work included assistance by the CIA in the form of money and operations. Browder said that during that period, he did purchase at least 2 B-25 planes to be used in smuggling operations, which could be used to assist in gun running and raids against Cuba. Browder said he could not recall where he bought the planes. However, he said a man named Pedro Diaz-Lanz flew one of the planes to him. Okay, so Pedro Diaz-Lanz and his brother, the Lanz brothers, the Diaz-Lanz brothers, or how the fuck you ever say that third name shit, they're close associates of Sturgis. So there's a rumor that Sturgis and brothers Lanz got into a caravan and drove from Miami with what's her face, the chick, Maria, what the fuck, Lorenz, I forget her name, Maria, I forget, you know who I'm talking about, you guys know who I'm talking about. That chick who allegedly was fucking Castro, who allegedly was supposed to confront Sturgis about being in the assassination, right? That whole story about the caravan is bullshit, okay? If you've ever heard anything about the caravan that went from Miami to fucking Dallas with Frank Sturgis and the Lanz brothers, chuck that shit right out the fucking window. It's nonsense. Never fucking happened. There's no evidence that it ever happened. I wouldn't be surprised if Sturgis was in Dallas. I have no evidence yet that he was, but I do have evidence E. Howard Hunt was, right? So we'll get to that one day. All right, so Pedro Diaz-Lanz, associate of Frank Sturgis, being mentioned here in a roundabout way, 2 people removed from George de Mohrenschildt, right? Browder said he was a former test pilot for Lockheed Aircraft and has also flown for Pan American Airlines. In May of 1978, the committee received information that a stockbroker in Palm Beach, Florida, had known George de Mohrenschildt in Haiti. The information came from Jack Cogswell of Palm Beach. According to Cogswell, he ran into Joseph Dreyer, who is a stockbroker with Loeb and Rhodes in Company in Palm Beach, and Dreyer offered information about George de Mohrenschildt. Dreyer told Cogswell that when he knew George de Mohrenschildt in Haiti, de Mohrenschildt's behavior was strange and included following people in his car. Dreyer related that de Mohrenschildt was associated with a man named Charles, who was the president of a bank in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Dreyer stated that he was told by Charles that a large amount of money had been placed in de Mohrenschildt's account in Charles' bank just before de Mohrenschildt left Haiti in 1967. Joseph Dreyer was interviewed by the committee in Palm Beach on July 6, 1978. At that time, Dreyer said that in the early 1950s, he became involved in a program sponsored by the U.S. government to develop a substitute for jute. Dreyer explained that the government's interest was in helping Caribbean and Latin American countries develop their own jute-producing capability and thereby save millions in the import of the product from other areas in the world. In connection with that program, Dreyer set up a jute subsidiary operation in Cuba, the North Atlantic Fiber Corporation. That just reeks of a fucking CIA business, doesn't it? Dreyer said that in 1958, Francois Duvalier, the president of Haiti, sent an emissary to Cuba to discuss the prospects for a jute enterprise in Haiti. What the fuck is jute? Dreyer said the emissary was Clamart Joseph Charles. Dreyer said additionally that Charles was involved in the mid-1960s in a deal with President Johnson to buy jets in Texas. According to Dreyer, the deal did not go through, but he said Charles may have had a successful deal for the sale of gunboats. Dreyer said Charles had many connections with the CIA, and Dreyer believed the agency may once have planted a secretary on Charles. Dreyer said he met George de Mohrenschildt through Charles. Dreyer said de Mohrenschildt claimed he came out to Haiti to scout for oil, but Dreyer stated that he could never figure out what he did. Dreyer expressed the belief that de Mohrenschildt had some intelligence connection, but Dreyer did not know with which country. According to Dreyer, he, Charles, and de Mohrenschildt were associated with a woman named Jacqueline Lancelot, who owned a well-known restaurant in Petitionville, Haiti. Let's look up Jacqueline Lancelot, please. Dreyer said the restaurant was frequented by many American intelligence personnel from the American Embassy and other foreigners. Lancelot had contact with the American intelligence operatives and passed them information about the Duvalier government. Dreyer's relationship with Lancelot included passing messages for her to people in the United States whom Dreyer assumed were connected in some way to the CIA. Dreyer said one of those contacts was a person who worked for French intelligence and cooperated with the CIA. In 1978, the person lived in the South. Dreyer said in the interview that Lancelot told him shortly after Kennedy assassination that a substantial amount of money, $200,000 or $250,000, had been deposited in de Mohrenschildt's account in Bank Port-au-Prince. According to Lancelot, it was not Charles' bank. Lancelot said her source of information was the person who handed out the funds at the bank. The money in the account was subsequently paid out, although she did not know to whom, and de Mohrenschildt left Haiti soon after. According to Dreyer, Jacqueline Lancelot related to him that President Duvalier had once implied that the American president might not remain in office. Lancelot reportedly said that during a speech to Haitian troops in a port city, Duvalier allegedly said that the big man in the White House wasn't going to be there much longer. Lancelot told Dreyer that she was not sure if the statement was made by Duvalier before or after President Kennedy's assassination. During the interview with the committee investigator, Dreyer was asked if he were familiar with the names of a number of people who may have had some connection or association with George de Mohrenschildt. Of the names, Dreyer recognized Dorothy Matlack and William Avery Hyde. He remembered Matlack as one of the people Charles asked Dreyer to contact for him in the United States. Dreyer could not remember in what connection or context Hyde's name had been used by de Mohrenschildt. The possible association between George de Mohrenschildt and William Avery Hyde may have some significance because Hyde is the father of Ruth Paine, the woman with whom Marina Oswald was living at the time of the assassination. The connection was intriguing because there was never any mention by the Warren Commission that the de Mohrenschildts had more than a brief acquaintance with Ruth Paine. De Mohrenschildt stated in his Warren Commission testimony that he met Ruth Paine on only one occasion at a party at the home of Everett Glover in Dallas. De Mohrenschildt said the party took place either in January or February of 1963. Let's pull everything on Everett Glover, please. De Mohrenschildt stated that it was his recollection that the only one time he saw Ruth Paine. In her Warren Commission testimony, Ruth Paine stated that she first met George de Mohrenschildt and his wife at the party at Everett Glover's, and that she never saw them again after that. Ruth Paine gave the date of that party as February 22nd, 1963. She stated that she had no conversations, no letters, no contacts whatsoever with the de Mohrenschildts either before or after that party. Interesting. All right, the de Mohrenschildt's military connections. In addition to being present with Clamart Joseph Charles at a meeting in Washington, D.C. in May of 1963 with a member of the Army Chief of Staff for Intelligence, George de Mohrenschildt had other personal associations with military personnel. An FBI memorandum dated September 15, 1942, stated that at the time de Mohrenschildt lived at 3022 Benton Street, Northwest in Washington, D.C. with Quinton Keynes, Keynes, Quinten Keynes, whom the memorandum described as a member of British intelligence and 2 American naval officers. The memorandum also stated that de Mohrenschildt was allegedly very pro-Nazi. In October 1942, the FBI interviewed the man who rented the Benton Street house, Paul Joachim. That's spelled Joachim. Joachim told the FBI that he was employed at the time at the Navy building. The other occupancy of the house were Lieutenant Commander Harry Hull of the U.S. Navy and Quinton Jones, who Joachim said worked at the British Embassy. Joachim said de Mohrenschildt lived at the house during the end of May and all of June 1942. He said de Mohrenschildt never made any statements about feelings toward any country and no statements which were pro-Nazi. De Mohrenschildt testified before the Warren Commission that at the time he first met Oswald in Fort Worth in the summer of 1962, he was accompanied by Colonel Lawrence Orlov. De Mohrenschildt described Orlov as his very close friend and stated that the 2 men were on business together in Fort Worth when de Mohrenschildt suggested they visit Oswald's family. Colonel Lawrence Orlov, O-R-L-O-V, that name is raising the hairs on the back of my neck, and I don't know why. I can't recall why. Let's pull everything on Colonel Lawrence Orlov. No further information about Orlov was elicited. He presumably retired from the military at that time. De Mohrenschildt testified further that during the first period of his acquaintance with the Oswalds in the fall of 1962, he and his wife took the Oswalds to a party in Dallas at the home of retired Navy Commander Chester Bruton, B-R-U-T-O-N. De Mohrenschildt said he and his wife were close to the Brutons. During the party, Bruton asked Oswald about his service in the Marine Corps, and according to de Mohrenschildt, received such a negative response from Oswald that the conversation was quickly terminated. All right. Looks like that is the end of de Mohrenschildt's military connections. We have a couple pages of chronology. George de Mohrenschildt chronology from the Warren Commission testimony. April 17, 1911, born in Mosir, Russia, to Sergius Alexander von Mohrenschildt and Alexandra Zopalski. 1918, returned to live in Minsk after the Russian Revolution. 1920, father seized and put in jail by the communists. 1921, father banished to Siberia after second arrest, sentenced to life imprisonment. 1922, father released from prison due to illness and escaped with family to Poland. Mother died soon after that of typhoid fever. Let me just skim through this and see if there's anything else of real relevance. Graduated in 1929 from the Polish Military Academy. 1931, graduated from Military Academy with rank of Sergeant Candidate Officer. Then he went to Belgium. 36, he received a master's degree at University of Liege, L-A-E-G-E. 38, received the equivalent of a Doctor of Science, International Commerce from Liege. During university studies, ran sport shop business with a girlfriend. So it's Dr. de Mohrenschildt, isn't it? May 38, emigrated to the United States with 10 grand, allegedly from his mother's estate in the sports business. Worked as a salesman for Schumacher and Company and met Jackie Kennedy and her mother at Bellport, Long Island during summer vacation. 39 to 41, he dabbled in insurance business and failed to pass a broker's exam. 39, worked for Humble Oil in Texas. Who else worked for Humble Oil in Texas in Houston in 1939? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Jack Valenti? Anybody? 1941, cousin Baron Maydell offered de Mohrenschildt a job making documentary movies. That's some weird stuff. We talked about all that stuff with Pierre Fraisse and Schumacher and Company. Approximately 1941, he received a 4F deferment from the American Army. That's interesting. That's really fucking interesting. He received a deferment from the American Army at the beginning of our involvement of the war. Crazy. He met Lilia Pardo Larin through the King of Bananas of Brazil. I'm assuming his deferment came through the CIA. Or, let me see, what year is it? 41? That's not CIA. There's no CIA to 47. It's OSS. The CIA, I'm pretty sure actually 41, it might have been the Office of the Coordinator of Information. But trust me, nonetheless, he was connected to it. Whatever the fuck it was. Let me see. Met Lilia Pardo Larin, through the King of Bananas of Brazil, Dr. Paulo Machado, and went to live with her in Mexico. Car stopped by FBI agents at Corpus Christi. Yeah, we already talked about that. He met Dorothy Pearson in Palm Beach in 42, and he married her in 43. And, yeah, we pretty much covered most of this stuff. Let's see if it has some stuff relevant to Oswald. All right, we'll start at summer 62, told by George Bowie, B-O-U-H-E, of the young American defector who returned to the United States with Russian wife living in Fort Worth. A few days later, went to visit with Colonel Orlov to visit Oswald. Marina was home alone. Oswald arrived home later. A few days after that, saw Marina alone again when his wife took her to a dental clinic at Baylor, offered to help Oswald find a job, introduced him to Samuel Ballin, later said may have occurred in December 62 or January of 63. September 62, visited Oswald's home in Oak Cliff. Marina had a black eye and claimed Oswald was beating her. I don't believe any of those stories. Helped Marina move in with the Mellors. A few days later, Oswald came by and asked for the address of the Mellors, talked to Max Clark about Oswald and J. Walton Moore. Those guys, Max Clark and J. Walton Moore, super important. We'll get to those at some. We'll do a show on them at some point. Christmas 62 invited the Oswalds to a party at the home of Declan Ford. Declan Ford, interesting. Did not see Oswald in October, November, December 62 until the Christmas party. January 63 took the Oswalds to a party at the home of Everett Glover. Met Ruth Payne for the first time. March 63 went to Haiti to arrange geology contracts with the Haitian government, and then all the Haiti stuff went down. Easter 63 visited the Oswalds at Neely Street address. Marina showed Gene Oswald's gun, asked Oswald about the Walker shooting. May 63 left Dallas for Haiti, stopped over in New York. And then June 63 went to Haiti, and April 64 went to the Dominican Republic from Haiti to get a Bureau of Mines information, went to San Juan, Puerto Rico. And it looks like that is it. There is a... God, how long is this thing? There is a... This is interesting. There is a... Oh, we might get... We'll do this tomorrow. We'll start this tomorrow. This is interesting. But there's a manuscript written here by George de Mohrenschildt called I'm a Patsy, I'm a Patsy. This will be fun. We'll get to this tomorrow. It might be long, but I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. How many people have actually read this? Not many. So we're going to. But, all right, guys, that's going to do it for today. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my Substack, substack.bloodyhistory.com. If you haven't bought the book, please buy the book. I hate all this fucking pandering nonsense, but unfortunately I got to do this thing called pay rent. What a bummer, huh? So, if there's anything that I can do for you that can help me to part you from your money, that would be greatly appreciated. So, that's it for today, guys. Tune in tomorrow. We will pick up with I Am a Patsy, I Am a Patsy by George de Mohrenschildt. Thanks, guys.